Yeah, it's an all too common scenario, I think, that we're all very familiar with. Food service operators spend countless hours researching equipment purchases, only to treat installation and maintenance as an afterthought. In reality, these two aspects are critical in ensuring the return operators so painstakingly research. To help shed some light on the importance of proper installation and maintenance of food service equipment, we have here today with us now Mark Liberti of ATEC, a national-based service agency. Mark is also a member of the CFESA Board of Directors. Mark, I guess the first, thanks for being here with us today.
You're welcome.
And the first question I have is, why is proper installation of a piece of equipment so important?
Well, I tell you, Joe, I can't overemphasize how critical proper installation is. Manufacturers spend a considerable amount of time designing equipment to certain specifications, and then you got manufacturers' reps who actually get this equipment specified for a customer based on menu items and space and things like that. If the piece of equipment is not installed properly, it will not get the performance that was expected from the manufacturer. And then oftentimes the rep is the one who looks bad because he's the one who recommended the piece of equipment. So it's real critical that the installation be done according to the installation instructions by the manufacturer.
You really got to start off on the right foot, solid, kind of all the old cliches, solid ground, square one the right way. But, I think it's something people always try to, you're so excited to get it and you go a little bit ahead. So what are some things that what pitfalls when it comes to installation should operators try to avoid?
Typically what I see is they allow perhaps less qualified or unqualified people to install the equipment. I've seen jobs where the general contractor would actually put the equipment in place and then they'd have the trades hook up the equipment with little or no supervision of the connections or hookup. And many times everything they need to know is right in the installation manual from the manufacturer that comes with the piece of equipment. It's just attention to details that make the difference, or the lack of.
Attention to detail and read the book.
Exactly.
They pack it in there for a reason. It's not just to keep the item from sliding around in the crate.
It's called read and follow instructions. We all did it in school.
Oh, well, actually, I think that's how I ended up in this job. I didn't read and follow instructions. When it comes to installing food service equipment, well, I guess that's the same question I just asked you. When cash gets tight, it seems to me as if maintenance is one of the first areas that operators look to cut back on. What are some of the things? Why would you avoid that? Why would you tell them to avoid doing this?
Can't do it. You've just spent all this money getting this piece of equipment in there. You've got it ideally installed properly, so it's performing to design specifications. If you don't maintain it, you're not going to maintain that performance.
Right.
It's much like an automobile. You can change the oil or not change the oil. The car will still run, but eventually you're going to pay for a new engine. That car's just not going to perform the same way. Food service equipment is much the same way. There are certain routine maintenance things that have to be done on a regular basis that need to be scheduled. Some of it's preventive, some of it's predictive. And they have to be done to make sure the equipment is performing to the design specifications on a consistent basis.
It would seem to me that, it's funny you use the car analogy because, what people will do, people will go and they'll pay $20,000 or $25,000, in some cases a lot more, for their car, and then they'll go every month and spend the $30 to get the oil changed or whatever that is, but they'll pay almost as much or maybe in some cases more than a car for a piece of equipment, and they kind of let it go.
Exactly.
And that has revenue implications, I would think.
It has revenue implications. It has to do with the life expectancy, life cycle of the equipment. It has to do with energy consumption. A piece of equipment that's performing poorly is going to use more electricity or more gas and things like that. And that's going to have the operator having more expenses in that area too.
Now, it would seem to me as food service equipment is becoming smarter, more sophisticated, we're talking about intelligent, multi-use. We're seeing more incorporation of gas, electric, water, all sorts of things into one place now. As these things become more sophisticated, it would seem to me that the maintenance and keeping them fine-tuned is going to be a little bit more important. We've kind of gone from driving the Honda Accord like I drive to the fancy sports car like I'm sure you drive.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But is that a growing concern more now because as the stuff becomes more high tech? I mean, or is it kind of the same as it's always been?
No, I think as it becomes more high tech, it does require more maintenance. Certain items do, certain items don't. Part of the high tech is eliminating items that need to be routinely maintained. But it really comes down to just having qualified people to work on the equipment. Someone who has the factory training and the information that they need to keep that equipment operating the way the manufacturer designed it to operate for its life cycle.
Now, if someone has been somewhat neglectful of product, of maintaining their equipment at this point, you know, theoretically, business is getting better, market's improving, that sort of thing. What advice would you give them if they maybe fallen off the wayside from their maintenance schedules?
I would say get with a good qualified service agency, have them come in there and go through the equipment and give them an analysis of where they are, where they stand and where they need to be, and perhaps what it's going to cost to get them back in shape where they need to be.
Yeah, I think that's really critical because I think right now as operators are starting to figure out that their business is slowly starting to get better and they've gotten pretty good at doing more with less. But they're maybe looking to make some strategic investments in technology to kind of improve some things or make up some things that are neglected. So I think kind of really working with the service agent to examine the usage and the age with a piece of equipment before you decide what you're going to replace, that'd probably be a good place to start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be a real good place, absolutely. You don't want to spend money on equipment that's not worth putting the money into because of the age, obviously. And with the advances of equipment these days, I mean, something that's 5 years old, you could probably save a lot of money with a newer piece of equipment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Efficiency.
Yeah, I think that, I think one of the things that it's looking at your operation from a holistic perspective, making sure that some people don't realize that if just one piece goes down, it can affect a whole bunch of other pieces and a whole bunch of other aspects of the operation, right?
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I would think that keeping one of the things I've learned talking with my friends at Cefeso over the years is that one of the things that labor really saves on that people don't seem to understand is or that maintenance really saves on is labor, because all that extra time trying to figure out what's wrong and calling you guys in and so forth, and you're not making a product then that's really servicing your customer at that point, are you?
No, not really. And it's critical because you can have something like a dishwasher that they need to wash dishes with on a regular basis. And if that equipment goes down because it's not been maintained properly, then what ends up happening is they have to get a couple more people in there to wash dishes by hand until they can get the machine fixed.
Yep.
And sometimes the cost of that extra labor would have been well more than it would have cost them just to have a preventive maintenance program in place.
Parts is a real big part of the equation these days, and there's a lot of debate in terms of OEM and generics, and I don't know if we want to go too far down that path, but when operators are looking at parts, I'm sure that there's no shortage of people online that are soliciting them, and the service people are talking to them and so forth. When it comes to making parts purchases and understanding what they're buying, what are some advice that you'd give operators?
I would recommend that they go with the OEM part. The OEM part is the part that was designed to go on the piece of equipment when the manufacturer designed the piece of equipment. It's also been checked by them and tested. They know what's there. When you buy a part that's not the OEM design part, you don't know what you're going to get. It could be the same, it could not be the same, it could fail a lot sooner. In fact, many times it does. You just know what you're getting when you get an OEM part.
Sure.
There's no guessing about it.
Now, when you're making a service call, and I'm calling you to come in and take care of my piece of equipment, what are some key pieces of information I should supply the servicer to make sure that we get a first-time fix?
In what way?
Well, I would think that ensuring a first-time fix, it's kind of a two-way street, right?
Okay.
It's not just, hey, this is broke, I don't know what's wrong,
Now I get it. Yeah.
Is there one or two things I should tell you before you dispatch that truck?
Absolutely. Give me the brand, give me the model number, give me the serial number. Many times I can bring parts with me. I mean, we work on so many different pieces of equipment. There's no way we can keep every part for every piece of equipment that we work on to get first times fixed. But if I know in advance which brand of equipment, which model, which serial number, I can bring parts with me, because we many times keep the parts in our warehouse. We just can't keep them all in our truck. So we have kits and parts that we put together to bring. So then I can come in, meet with the manager, find out what's going on with it, take a look at it, diagnose the problem, and many times have the part right there with me to get him back up and operating that day.
Perfect. Well, with that, Mark, I think that ends our time here today. I'd like to thank you for your time here and sharing some of your expertise. And thanks everybody for listening here today. And this is Joe Carbonara from the NAFM Show saying good day.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Mark.